Hey guys, welcome back. So it has been a long time since my last video update. I broke my phone screen after taking the last one and also injured my arm, so I was taking some time off the site. We have also had some pretty crazy weather, rain and hail, many days, probably every other day for a couple of weeks straight. And then we've also had a lot of wind, so recording was really tricky. So I'm going to do a full site walkthrough here and try to do this quickly, but kind of talk through some of what's been going on. I'm starting way out here at the property line because I wanted to show off the plants. They are mostly, but not completely, dead. What's interesting is that a lot of the original growth at the outer edges has died, but you can see that there's actually some very healthy growth here in the rows. There is still some life left to be had here in our lilacs. And although this one's pretty toast, all of the others have at least some life left in them. And this one is kind of coming back here. So I've started to put some soil moisture meters in. I have not been watering these. The deer got into them pretty hard and I kind of wrote them off. But I'm pleased to see that they are coming back here. So you can see I've got some netting. And it's kind of a hot mess because the wind blew it over in the last storm, but I will be working on improving that and getting that going again. Coming out here, not a lot to say, except one thing I did do is upgrade the water pump. This is still just kind of sitting on the ground here, and I need to figure out something more permanent to do with it. But that is just a typical Harbor Freight pump, kind of a hot mess here, but you can see I've got a suction hose, and the hose is kind of running down to the camper over here. So this has been a pretty reliable source for water for me. This Drummond pump does take a ton of power. My truck camper is not capable of running that. I've got a 3500 watt inverter in here, which would have been nice to run it from because it's right over here and it's the only thing that solar would do. But the inverter just kind of can't keep up with the pump. And so I've got the extension cord run all the way down to the main camper. This camper here has 240 watt panels on the roof. A single 100 amp hour battery was all I could fit, and a 3500 watt inverter. That's peak inrush, and I think really it's probably better running at 2000 watts, and it's just not keeping it. This main camper here has 1200 watts of solar on the roof, a 5000 watt inverter, and 300 amp hours of battery capacity, so it can easily handle the load. Although it's a little hard to see here, I'm not going to walk down there through the weeds, but you can see I've also hard piped the sewer. It's not completely done. I need to get my angles a little bit better and get kind of more of a 1/4 inch a foot drop. But I've got it more temporarily installed there so it's not leaking or anything. And that's really, really nice to have because that way we can just kind of run the camper down into the septic, never have to worry about draining the tanks. I don't know if I showed it in the last video, but this is the trash solution I came up with. The animals do love to get into my trash, and so I've just got kind of a bin here that I can keep them in. And then what I do is I use a small 8-gallon bag from the camper and then a big 30-gallon that when I'm on my way home, I'll double bag and move like 3 or 4 of these each into those and throw them in the back of the truck bed. So that's working out really well, and I'm pretty happy with it. Coming down here, really not a lot to report in this area, except one big letdown. I was really happy with this river stone, this nice quarried stone here. There's a ton of mica in it. It's just beautiful. It's probably not coming through in the video, but most of the stones are now breaking. I did not bed them properly, and this was a risk I knew I was taking. This honestly hasn't been a priority here. So it's not something like I'm super worried about, but it was a little disappointing. A lot of these stones here, you can see like the corner of this one's kind of breaking off here. And, that's kind of expected here, but I was hoping they'd be just a little bit more durable than it turned out to be. The other new thing before I walk into the property here is I got a burn barrel going, and you can see I've kind of just got some ash spread out here. What I've been doing is burning my clean cardboard, any like paper towel tubes, cardboard tubes, egg cartons, anything along those lines, boxes. I'll take the tape off, but being able to burn this here has been a big advantage for me. The cardboard is the bulkiest and also most expensive item to dispose. What's interesting is our local landfill, the last time I went, charged me $12 for half a truck bed of trash and $8 for one small packed box of cardboard. So disposing of cardboard around here is actually insanely expensive and kind of bulky and difficult to deal with, and I'm always having to tear it up and everything. So being able to just burn that down is kind of a nice advantage for me. Plus, I'm able to burn a lot of my construction scraps, cut ends of rafters and things like that, all those little corners that aren't really good for anything else. I'm able to burn those and get rid of them. And then I've got this nice ash here that I can use as a soil amendment in the garden. As I said, I am cleaning the cardboard, so that ash is pretty clean, and I'm able to reuse that. Haven't really done anything with the dig. Everything's all tilted and falling over, and my string lines aren't straight anymore, and that's all okay. I'm going to come and redo this here. This was really just for positioning. I thought I would get this pour done. Haven't had a chance to, and decided I wanted bigger than 8-inch sonotubes anyway, so I need to go and get some new sonotubes. Otherwise, not really a lot to report about that. Coming into the house here, actually, if I step back a little bit, you'll see that I've started on the main rafters. I don't know if I had done any of this in the last video. The ridge is completely installed, and I'm more or less happy with how it came out. There is one area where it's not straight, it's slightly kinked, but you cannot tell unless you're actually standing up there on a ladder looking down it. From underneath, it looks perfectly straight. So I'm not fussed about it. It's only out by about a ½ inch over the whole run. There's just one little kink in it, and it'll get covered by the cap shingles, the ridge cap. Once I get the shingles up on the roof here. So now you can start to see, though, what I've just been able to point out in earlier videos. So the roof is a salt box style, and that means that the ridge is off center. So you can see that there's going to be a shorter section here, both 5/12 pitch, but this is only an 8-foot run, while this is about a 24-foot run. And yes, those are not spliced rafters. There will be a structural load-bearing wall underneath that, right where that hits, with bearing on both sides. That is just there because I felt it was easier than trying to nail my measurement over such a long run. It's about 24 feet there. First time building a house, I really wanted more of the Larry Hahn style kind of measure and build it in place. And I figured it'd be more accurate if I measured it once the rafters were in. And of course, to do that, since they're supposed to bear on that wall, I just have some temporary splices there that I will be leaving in for strength, but they are not meant to be structural. So don't freak out about that. It's kind of a weird detail, but it's going to be fine. And you can see what happens here now is that this roof line comes down and actually ends on the back of the mudroom wall. And then there will be a gable that comes over this way. It actually comes out all the way over to the porch. So the reason I haven't bothered to pour these is that they aren't a priority, but the reason I did go ahead and already dig them is to get their positions set. So once I get my string lines reset and computed and everything here, I'll be able to set my posts and at least compute how far out that roof is going to come when it comes out here, because this is going to be closed in as the mudroom, but the roof is going to extend out over the porch so that there's a covered area that you can walk into. Coming into the house, things are really coming together here, or as much as you can hope for. It's a little bit of a mess because I have lumber all over the place, trying not to keep it outside, but this is what I'm talking about, construction scraps. Obviously, some of this will go for blocking, but not all of it. So I'm going to have plenty left over to go into the fire pit and the burn barrel, and the burn barrel is really just much safer around here. If we get a gust of wind, we don't want cinders or sparks blowing around, so I tend to use the burn barrel more than the fire pit. As you can see, the rafters are starting to come in place. I've, made one or two little boo-boos here. Nothing I can't trim off later, but otherwise, pretty happy with my joints and how all my layout's coming down here. So I've got to get the rest of the rafters come over. These rafters will come over and end here, and this will be sheetrocked over eventually. So this will be just ceiling inside here. And then as you can see, I've got the very first of the start of the run of the rafters that will come out and meet those. And although I'll make a square cut on them, this will be an overhang here so that I can get some coverage over like the window in the kitchen and things like that from rain. Now, the kitchen, there's really not a lot to report here. It's kind of just a kitchen. It's here. It exists. In the living room, the great room, you can see now where the wall will end. So that is the height of the great room wall. There will be a window and a door looking out onto the back here. And then you can see the window wall, which will have a third row of windows once I get that done. And what I've got here is just some temporary rigging to get these rafters up here and to get nice flush cuts. I don't know if this is going to come through in the video, but I have put a ton of effort into making some nice tight fits everywhere, and I'm sorry, I'm going to have to splice this video together here. I accidentally shut off my phone while I was doing that. But I am pretty proud of my workmanship here. Got one or two little spots that I need to address, put a shim in, but otherwise they're nice and tight. And the way I'm doing that is by using a lot of mechanical aid. These rafters are very heavy, they're very long, the winds have been high. It'd be dangerous to be up there on a ladder trying to mount them, so you can see what I've got is some Harbor Freight boat winches, one here and one here with some pulleys at the top. And I've been using those to do things like lifting the ridge beam into place and lifting rafters into place here. So that's been really a lifesaver for me. You could do this with an electric winch just as easily, but these things are like $35, especially if you get them on sale or you're an Inside Track member. They're a really great deal. One thing you do need to watch out for is that they are not all the same. Actually, it's funny, I bought these both on the same day, and they're slightly different. This one has a bit more of a mechanism on its catch lever or cam. I don't know what you call this, but this lever is not the same as the other one, and the gear teeth are very, very rough on it. So as I'm cranking it up, I often have to get in here with a screwdriver and kind of get it over the tooth that's not quite catching. Whereas that one has no problems at all and runs very, very smoothly. So I kind of wish I had switched them, because I'm using this one for 30 more rafters, and that one I only used for one ridge beam, but I left it in there just in case I need to adjust any final thing there. Anyway, you live and learn. But yeah, so I've got to get, obviously, the rest of the rafters on this side, the short ones, in place. I'm hoping to work on that today. This wall is in here, so I'll obviously need to finish the gable end wall. And then kind of coming up the stairs here, nothing super new to report, but obviously I have a lot of rafters in place, and now you can start to get a sense of how those load-bearing walls work and how they're going to support the rafters at the mid-span where those joints are. So those joints are right over this this wall. So this is a load-bearing wall here, and you can see now the load-bearing wall will run all the way down the center line-ish of the house. It's a foot off center just to give more room to the great room, but it's very close to it. And this is actually right above the girder. It's only a few inches off where that main girder runs right down the middle of the house, and you're allowed to be actually a joist thickness or joist depth away from that line. So I'm very close to it, only about 4 inches off. And so this will be a load-bearing wall running down the middle of the house here that will come up and catch those rafters here as well and kind of divide the main rooms of the house here. So you can now really start to get a sense of the space. And what you can do is you can look down and see how that salt box roof kind of has an effect on the layout of the structure here. If we're looking down kind of the middle, what you'll notice is that there's kind of a long but very gently sloping roof over here, and this knee wall makes this roof much higher. And what'll end up happening is if you're standing here just coming up from the top of the stairs, you'll be able to have a room where you come up the top of the stairs and have, a bedroom or two and a shared Jack and Jill bathroom, so that there's plenty of room up here for guests to stay or, just to increase the value of the house, even if we don't really use the space. I have not yet put egress windows in here. Adding the bedrooms up here was kind of an afterthought, and I do need to do something about that. So I'm going to add a window here and then maybe some type of escape hatch or window over here. And, I need to think about that a little bit, but that is something that's on the plan for right now. And once I get that sorted out here, I may end up having to adjust a stud or two. But otherwise, this upper area is largely done. And as you can see, what I'm doing now is just continuing my rafters over. And you'll notice that although they would have been easy to install, I stopped running these rafters in the last few feet. My thought was Moving these sheet goods, especially in high wind, is both difficult and dangerous. I've injured my elbow once already. They're 80 pounds apiece, and when the wind gets them, it can add 40 to 80 pounds more on top of the load of what you're carrying, just trying to push you over. So the problem with that is that I need a way to move them safely and alone, despite the wind. So what I thought I would do is I left this open here, and I'll install these rafters last. And what I'll do is I'll walk the sheet goods up into the house up here. I may even work out a ramp or something so I can kind of slide or roll them in just to take the load off. And then I'll walk them down this direction, and I can walk them over and literally lay them onto the roof without having to climb a ladder from the ground. So that should be much, much easier to install my sheeting. Then I thought what I would do is run some 2x4s across here temporarily, just kind of scab those on there as supports, lay some sheets here, and then I can actually push the sheets up and over, literally just walk them up and over these, they're built-in ramps already, and drop them down the other side, such that if I put a 2x4 like this on the other side to catch them, I can kind of just push my sheets up and over, drop them in place, and then just have to kind of get out on a ladder and nail them off. But it's a 512 pitch roof, so I should be able to do that safely. And that's one of the reasons why I went with a 512 pitch, is that, you know, higher pitches are better for alpine climates in theory. If you look up residential design guidelines, it's very aesthetically driven. They'll say standard pitches are anywhere from 4 and 12 up to 12 and 12. It's kind of up to you what you do. If you go below 4, you need to think about water collection issues. You go above 12, it's much higher on the wind load, depending on where you are. But it's funny, you know, anywhere in between there, there's no strong guidance that says 5 versus 7 versus 8, why? Why would you do, 8 versus 6? That is largely aesthetics. And so 5 is a good bump up for me. It's a little bit better slope here. And what's interesting about it is that this is just about the perfect slope for the average solar collection during the year here in this area. So you can see my hidden second purpose. This is the south-facing side of the house. As you can see, it's getting on towards noon as I'm doing this video, and the sun is just kind of up here to my left. So what's going to be nice about this is that this is the perfect area for me to install all of my solar. And although I will not cover the entire roof with panels, I'll have room for tons of panels. Like if you actually did the math on it, it's insane. I would have room here easily if I watch my plumbing penetrations, and I'm careful about those, for I think the math said 44 panels. And that's not even counting anything that I might do on this side if I wanted to catch some morning sun, something along those lines. So I have tons of room for solar capacity, but to be honest, I think what I'll probably end up doing is something more reasonable, maybe 10 to 15 panels, at least for now, and then I may add a wind generator. We get a significant amount of wind. If I'm looking out this direction here across the vista, right over that hill is where Great Sand Dunes National Park is. And as you can see, we've got the two mountains, Blanca and Lindsay, over here. So one of my thoughts, there's actually wind blowing at my face right now. I'm hoping it doesn't affect the audio. But because the wind never really stops here, my thought was maybe somewhere behind the shed or somewhere up on a pole, we can put one or two small wind generators and wind turbine, and with that, we'll be able to have power at night. I have noticed here that the camper is a little bit undersized. If you're thinking about solar for your own off-grid or camper install, here's a little input from you. I have 1,200 watts on the roof, 300 amp hours of battery down in the bay. On a sunny day, I'll start out in the morning around 20 or 30% state of charge, according to my monitors. On a sunny day, I will be fully charged by noon, which tells me that my solar capacity is like way bigger than it needs to be. It's probably 2 to 3 times the size that it needs to be, which is fine. I wanted some extra capacity. Solar cells are pretty cheap. But it also tells me that my batteries are undersized. I've only got 300 amp hours of capacity in there, which sounds fine. But as it's getting colder and the furnace is running more, I'm showering in the morning before the solar really gets going. If I'm up at like 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, I shower in the morning. So I'm running the pump. all of those kinds of things are draining me. And I've had some times where I've actually run out of power in the early morning hours, particularly on rainy days. If I go through a rainy day, I do have to run the generator, and that's been a challenge for me. So I'd really like to get to a point here where I'm running completely on solar, not 90% on solar. And I think what I need to do that to get through some rainy or snowy days is maybe double my battery capacity. I'd need maybe 600 amp hours of capacity. And that's for one guy running Starlink, my furnace, my water pump, and other incidentals, charging my laptop and my phone, and doing some miscellaneous things like that, lighting, some other lower usage draws. So just a little bit of input for you. Make sure you've got plenty of battery capacity, maybe double what you think you need, because you want to allow for rainy or snowy days when you're not getting much solar input. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up here. I know I've been rambling, but it was a big update and I had a lot to talk through. So I hope you all enjoy this. Like and subscribe if you want to follow some more videos. And by the next time I do a recording, we should be seeing the rest of these rafters go in. You can see I've already got my layout here. I just need to finish a few of them off and get a few more hangers up here. That's my job today. And also working on what I'm going to start calling these the front rafters and the back rafters, even though this is really the kind of the front-ish of the house, just because, this is where everything happens over here to my left. But I obviously have to get a ton of these rafters in place. And oh, hello, bird. I have a little guest here. So I'll get all those in place here, get the rest of my hangers up. And by the next time you see this, I should hopefully be mostly to completely finished with the rafters and be working on my load-bearing walls here, finalizing those in my gable end. Thanks for watching.